Hi, I'm Penny, and today I'll be doing my presentation for my dissertation. As you can see, fitting with the theme of virtual avatars, I'll be presenting this using a virtual avatar. So, let's make a start. Ooh. Right, so my topic is basically on the whole area of virtual avatars, what they can do for the industry, what the public perception is of them, and how they've developed through the years. So first, what is a virtual avatar? Well, a virtual avatar is a character used to represent yourself in a virtual space, whether that's a game or presenting to an audience or anything in that area. As you can see on the screen, I've got an old avatar I used to use, and then my current one, which I will actually be using for doing some live streaming on Twitch, which I'm very excited for. So first, chapter 1. This is just about the public's perception of virtual reality through a lot of contemporary media. So one of the first examples I looked at was the 1980s film Tron. Now this was the public's first introduction to virtual worlds and avatars, as computers and computer technology were very new at the time. A great example of this is that the internet actually came out after this movie was released. So in the public perception, a lot of this technology was very new and very confusing to a lot of people. So I think this is why this movie was very heavy on like how threatening the computer was and how scary it was to be trapped inside it. Then the next movie I looked at was The Matrix. Now I believe this film really introduced a wider audience to the idea of computers and simulations and how that can be a great basis for a story. Although being trapped inside the computer was still saw as bad in this movie, it made it look very cool to a lot of the audience. And in fact, one of the characters in the films actually prefers being inside the computer because he feels like he has a lot more power there. So he actually makes a deal and rats out people to go back into that world, which I believe is a very, very interesting take on a story coming out at this time. Next film I looked at was Tron Legacy. Now, in contrast to the original Tron, this one is a lot more stylized, like cyberpunk. It makes the computer world seem like very cool, really awesome to hang out in. For example, like had Daft Punk in the movie, so they'd done a lot of the music on it, which I believe just solidifies how much they were leaning into the aesthetic, being like, yeah, virtual worlds, this is really cool. Yeah, then next film I looked at was Ready Player One, which I believe this was actually a really good interpretation of a virtual VR world, because everybody in the film has their own virtual avatars to represent themselves. As you can see in the middle of the screen, there's the two protagonists in the film. In the virtual world, they both have an avatar which represents their personalities a lot more. And then during the big climactic battle scene, you see a variety of like pop culture characters, which from personal experience playing games like VR Chat and Second Life, a lot of people tend to actually theme their characters around or even just straight up use the models from contemporary media. Like I'll just occasionally be walking around and I'll see somebody dressed as Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. Yeah. And the last film I looked at was a movie called Belle. Now, this was just released in this last year, and it's pretty much Beauty and the Beast, but set inside a virtual world with a very shy schoolgirl who, through the use of VR, ends up becoming a world famous singer. And I won't spoil the plot too heavily because I really encourage anyone watching this presentation to watch this movie. It's genuinely very nice. Right, now on to chapter 2, which will be covering like virtual avatars in a lot more depth and their current effect on the media landscape. Primarily, this will be through VTubers, and a VTuber is pretty much a subset of like live streamers or like YouTubers who pretty much only use a virtual avatar to talk to their audience, and like when they're playing games, they'll have it set up like a webcam, like this one down here. Yeah. So the first main group I wanted to look at was HoloLive. Now this is a big company who actually employ a lot of pre-existing streamers to be a part of their brand and have like a VTuber avatar designed for them. They have a very high budget, so a lot of the models are very high quality. So as you can see, the two examples I've got, and the top one, Corone, she's like based around a dog, like bakery kind of aesthetic. Like both of these tend to play games on their like streams, but interact with their audience a lot too. Corone is part of the Japanese wing of HoloLive, which is their biggest section, as they only opened the English version recently. But then Gura below, the shark-themed girl, she's part of the English side and is a lot more chaotic of a streamer, which I think appeals more to a Western demographic. who are used to like YouTubers being very in your face and like just kind of like having banter with their audience. Now looking over at independent streamers, one of my favourites at the moment is the Sky T, or just Sky. She's an art and video game streamer, and genuinely I love all of the aesthetic of her streams. But one of the more interesting details, she has a bird character called Doug who sits next to her constantly on the streams, and the audience can actually redeem points to get Doug to speak their comment in a text-to-speech voice, which I think adds a whole extra level of interaction between her and the audience. You can also redeem points to change his outfit, or like give him like a bag of birdseed next to him, or something like that. And it's just very good for like interactions with the audience. Sky's what's known as a PNG tuber, who pretty much, it's a lot simpler of a model where you draw all the different poses and you can have it set to change with like a hotkey. So like what I was showing earlier, like all of these expressions. But yeah, but they're just hand drawn and swapped out like that, which I think leads a lot more creativity, makes it a lot simpler. Then moving over to Vroid avatars, which my lovely avatar here is one. These are made in a very complex character creator software, but anyone can just download it, have a try and make something. You can completely customize the textures, so it leads to a lot of creativity. Like one example, Randu, who's a video game streamer, instead of a webcam during tournaments, he likes to use a Vroid avatar of his Minecraft character, and I think it's a very good use case for it, as he does not particularly like showing his face on stream, so it allows him to express with his audience without the risk of accidentally showing his face. Right, now CodeMiku is one of the most expressive and unique 3D avatars in the industry at the minute. It's a very complex avatar mixed with a very expensive setup. Like as you can see in the GIF in the bottom right, her avatar is tracked to a very expensive rig and costume, which that costume alone costs $30,000, which for someone starting up is a very high price. However, unless you want something this complex, that's not quite needed, as mine is just running on a webcam. Right, moving on to chapter 3, I'll be talking about this technology's impact on individuals and the future of the medium. So when talking about the future of the medium, I think it's important to look at what's came before in like online space and how virtual avatars may develop in the same way. So for example, some of the first very popular YouTubers like Fred and Smosh, they were actually offered big budget movies, which did fairly well at the box office, mainly due to their already pre-existing fan base. However, these did not last very long, as a lot of companies realised that, oh, this is not very profitable. However, YouTube have a sub-series of videos which they've funded themselves called YouTube Originals. It's like up here is Yai Time by Jack's Films, and at the bottom's In Space with Markiplier. So Yai Time is pretty much a quiz show where he gets other famous YouTubers and some of his audience in to just answer quiz questions, do tasks, a lot of that stuff, which I think would be very fitting for a VTuber to run a show like that. But then In Space with Markiplier is a very complex, like choose your own adventure series where you click on different links to take you to different videos, so you can see what type of ending you get. Yeah. Oh, small trigger one for the next page. I'll be covering YouTuber controversies which contain abuse, suicide, and racism. Thought it was best to give a small warning. Yeah. Right. So some controversies at the minute with YouTube. There's a lot of famous YouTubers who have millions of subscribers. There always seems to be stories come out about they're not great people. For example, PewDiePie said a slur on stream during a game, as well as a multitude of other things which I did not feel comfortable going into. But he's still got a very big fan base, aside from all of that stuff he's done, which I think if there's a VTuber who got into similar controversies, they would just be able to just leave their channel and just move to a new one and to be completely unharmed in their personal reputation. Like they could also do this with a similar thing like Sky does Minecraft, where he was revealed to be abusive and had assaulted like 2 of his ex-partners, or Logan Paul, which in a vlog filmed somebody who'd hung themselves and was making jokes about it. Like these are very serious things that have happened, and if somebody just had the complete anonymity to just be like, to just leave and just start up a new channel. Like there's no risk to them doing that besides having to start back from the ground up. But if they know what they're doing, they can start quite a popular channel. Yeah. Right, another big controversy, which relates a lot more to VTubers specifically, is Shudugram. This is an Instagram account of a completely virtual model created by Cameron James Wilson, but it is ran as if it is Shudu's own account, which is highlighted by the comments, like calling her beautiful, rather than saying, wow, this art is beautiful. So Cameron has got a lot of brand deals off the back of this and has profited from a lot of hashtags and trends meant to uplift black artists, which feels very shady to me. And although I assume it's from a place of ignorance, of not realizing it's kind of taking advantage of something meant for like people of color, it still doesn't sit right with us, because he only lists himself as a photographer on any of her posts, when he completely created this character and used her for profit. Right, moving on from some controversy, I want to talk about VR technology and how much it is becoming a mainstream thing. Like just this last Christmas, the downloads of the virtual reality app Oculus, which is needed for using the Oculus Quest headsets, that doubled from last year, with 1.7 million downloads in just December alone, which would be around Christmas when a lot of children got a VR headset. So I believe this is very telling of where the industry's going, because if you think 1.7 million, if next year if the headsets are even cheaper, or there's a lot more companies developing stuff for it, a lot more people will get them, and we're likely to see over 3 million downloads next Christmas, and maybe 6 or 7 million by the Christmas after. Yeah. However, although having this accessibility and affordability is good for the headset, the company behind it is quite sketchy. As Meta, they're wanting to create a lot of VR based places, but the actual companies have had a shocking record for data security. Like just back in 2018, Facebook was fined £500,000 over the Cambridge Analytica scandal, which involved a third-party company taking a lot of data from Facebook users who hadn't consented to this data being taken, and then which was then used to target political ads towards a lot of them, which some say could have quite a big sway on elections. So they were fined by a watchdog in the UK for this breach. And it was also revealed a lot of their deals behind closed doors with a lot of other big companies that Facebook likely want to have a close partnership with, had a lot more access to users' data than any other companies that would work with them. However, I want to leave this whole presentation on a really positive note, and I believe one thing which I love to see about virtual reality is how accessible it's being created to be. For example, a lot of VR stuff, although you can use it standing up, has had a sitting option, which allows people in wheelchairs to just blend in and just interact with people without the first thing that others see being their wheelchair or their disability. I think one big challenge for virtual reality is going to be how, if this was to become mainstream to the point of how mainstream phones are at the moment, how are you going to make that accessible for blind people or people who are like deaf or hard of hearing? So there's a concept I saw on the right for a VR cane for people who are comfortable using a cane to walk around. That would be one option to help them navigate in VR. So it would stop them from walking into objects or people by artificially stopping the cane, as it would if it had hit a normal object. And another thing is for people who may not be as comfortable using a cane, would be haptic gloves, which allow you to kind of feel stuff in VR. So say you grab your hand around a ball in VR, the glove stops your hand where the ball would be, so it feels like you're actually grabbing onto it. For people who are deaf or hard of hearing, VR can be very strange because it's a lot of people talking like live. However, there's a lot of software being developed at the moment to actually create audio transcripts in real time. And I think if this was implemented in a VR chat like simulation, having just a little chat box near people when they're talking, so I could say like, "Hi, my name's Penny. How are you?" And that would be on a chat box next to us. I mean, I could communicate a lot easier with somebody who's deaf or hard of hearing, as unless you have a full VR glove, it's very hard to do sign language in VR. Finally, I just want to conclude this by saying thank you for sitting for this presentation. Hope you've enjoyed seeing my avatar and hearing me discuss this, an area that's very close to my heart, which I can't wait to see how it improves in the future. So thanks again for listening to us. Hope you have a good